All right. I think we are live. Welcome this morning. It is May 6th, 2020, still dealing with the coronavirus. And we're here to talk about education. So, this is Educators Drinking Coffee. I am still drinking the Café Sello Rojo from Colombia. Again, it's one of my favorites. It's really very popular in stores in Colombia. The mug today is actually from Costa Rica. I want to say a former colleague of mine, Susanna, gave it to me. She's back in Costa Rica. So good morning, Susanna. I know it's early. And so today, I also want to remind everyone, yesterday was actually technically the National Teachers Appreciation Day, but it's the entire week. So continue to make sure you show your appreciation for your teachers. I also want to give a shout out to our seniors at Pasco County High School. Today they go and pick up their cap and gowns. Girls go from 12 to 1:30, and the boys from 1:30 to 3. Remember to keep social distancing. You're going to remain in your vehicles as Justin's passes out, which I have my Justin's t-shirts. Make that change. Great event last year that I went to. Really an effort to recognize all the students. So grateful to be here this morning again. Let me just double check. I just want to make sure we are streaming live as we go. I hope you all enjoyed your interview yesterday with Coach Barlow. He is individual that really cares about his students, and both in the classroom and in the field. So I appreciate his insight yesterday, and also on teaching electives, performance-based classes during this time. So with that in mind, make sure that you let me just check one more thing here. Let's see if we are going live on. Yes, we are on Facebook. Hopefully this is going on. So with teaching performance-based, and I said it's very different. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about teaching strategies for teaching online. I'm not an expert. Just did a little bit of research, read some articles, and my own personal experience. So there's a few things I guess I'm going to talk about, and just we got to think about this long term. I know it's not going to be a thing that we do it this year and not do it again. It's bound to pop up again. Not sure how schools are going to look like next year. And speaking of that, that's actually going to be the subject matter tomorrow with a special guest, Mr. Jonathan Geldmaker. We're going to talk about just our views, about how we think school is going to look like in the fall. So that's actually pretty interesting. So I hope you all tune in. Again, I'm always open for ideas for discussion. So, and if you wanted to come in the mornings and chat with me here live, please let me know. We can set this up. So one of the biggest things that we have to realize is from middle of March, when we made that shift, that was a sudden shift. For most of us, it didn't give us a whole lot of time to really think about the impact, think about what we were trying to teach on a daily basis and how that looked like online. It's for a lot of us, it is the first time we kind of do this online stuff. Some of us are veterans of teaching face-to-face. Some people have more experience. Some have incorporated already in their classrooms, and maybe those folks had an easier time to transition. So experience matters. If you've had experience with technology, you've had experience with having kids, go home and do some of the work. All that, made the transition either easier or harder for whoever you are. But either way, the goal is to keep helping our kids the most that we can. So today, like I said, I wanted to have some of these strategies, and I have about 5 or just suggestions, I guess I would say, when you're thinking about your classes. And we're coming up to the last month of school, so maybe a little late, but I think it's a great idea to start thinking. I think all of us have to really think now about how our classes are going to look like come the fall. We would be kidding ourselves if we think we're going to be back like it was in August. I think there's got to be some sort of change. Good morning. My mom says good morning here. Let me see here. I'm trying to manage a couple of these things. All right. So let me see. Evidently, let me fix my sorry. My settings here on Facebook. Keeps doing this. It keeps making it just. Let me turn the volume down here. Keeps making it private for me, and I keep making it public, so I don't know why. So good morning for those of you on Facebook. I apologize. I thought everything was running, but it keeps just popping up for me. But now it should be public. Everyone should see it. So but anyway, but just thinking about the things that we should do when we transition to online. And one of the biggest things, and to me it goes along, relationships are key, I think, to all of this. Good morning, Mr. Tripp. But when you're trying to transition from a face-to-face to an online, the material you present has to be relevant, has to be authentic. It has to be the way that kids see. More than ever, you have to have real world examples, things that are going to be relevant to them. Reading a story about Johnny goes to the market, buys so many things, and then, that's, you can do it in class, you have the ability to talk about it, this and that. But when you're, that distance is there, you're going to have to make it authentic. It takes a lot of work, but you really look at how Johnny or Mary or whoever it is can see themselves with the material you're presenting. Or ask, that's where you getting to know your kids and asking them questions about, maybe they go to the supermarket. Well, ask them about what they do. See if you can pull things like that. Just the world out there just provides rich content. We just have to be able to access it and really make it relevant to the kids. So a few things to get authentic, and it is sometimes think about shows, recordings, History Channel, and some of you do it already, these video clips, but it's got to be, these authentic, if you're doing social studies, something on the World War, Vietnam Wars, Gulf War, anything like that, of a show that has aired, if you can get clippings and share those, then also, have live discussions about it. I think when you show these videos, again, it is something that's happened in the past, but the discussion brings it live, and having live discussions about that really makes it more authentic, more relevant to the kid. I mean, and our kids are growing up. They've always known we've been in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and so they know that's the way the world is. But how did all that get started? So, bringing relevancy to it would be good. Thank you, Shannon, for stopping by. My wife, as always. I appreciate it. If we're also teaching physics or anything like that, video recordings of court proceedings, that's real life stuff. And sadly enough, some of our kids have experience in being in the courtroom. So, that brings some relevancy to it. I'm not big into, podcasts, but there are very, interesting podcasts there with experts in the field. I mean, if you're doing them, a unit or a section on, biology and viruses, hey, I'm sure there's something out there with Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx or anything like that that can bring relevancy. And, our kids are beginning to hear those names and say, okay, I've heard of that guy. I've heard of that lady. So bringing authenticity to your lessons is very important. Just doing something that if you're not there for the support, it's going to be boring, to be honest with you. So make sure you do that. Then along the way you present that material, we talked about, videos, recordings of, podcasts, We have to create and provide the material in a variety of media resources, multimedia resources. So, and to me, I think that's also very important. Now, one thing that I really like, I like the notion of pathways in the classroom when the student has the option of doing the work presented one way or to present the material another way. That really allows for differentiation, and I think online really allows for differentiation. I think the biggest problem that teachers face is participation. But I think the differentiation is there. It's there for the taking. So looking at ways to provide the material in different formats. I mean, again, we talked about video, we talked about audio, you can still have them read. You can have discussions and live sessions. So all those kind of things really, really go into allowing a kid who's not very strong in one or two ways, the ability to access the material, the content in a variety of ways. So, hang on a second. Sorry, just reading a message here on Facebook. No, so yeah, because students are going to struggle. They're not going to be, certain media is just not their media. So giving them a variety of, resources and, like I said, pathways really go a long way with helping them understand the material. So, it's just like, you got to change. You got to be creative in this online world. It can't be the same, just stand up and deliver. So just make sure you're kind of just changing that up, but again, changing it to a point where you're not doing so many different things. The kids have a hard time understanding how to use the tool you're using. I mentioned in one of my earlier broadcasts that you want to stick to just a few, your go-tos that kids are very comfortable and things like that. You don't want to be trying, using this website, using this tool, Kahoot, any other kind of just resources, whatever it may be, Flipgrid and all this. And you want to make sure whatever you're using, you are very, very comfortable with, because the kids are going to get it right away. When you're trying to teach a lesson and you're trying to use this tool and you're struggling, like, I don't know what's going on, it was working, and they see through it. Just like maybe, I've been having issues here, technical difficulties every day. I thought I had it today. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm broadcasting straight live on Facebook and YouTube and no issues. I initially got a comment from YouTube. So I'm like, great, we're on there. And it looked like we were on Facebook. But again, I have to figure out, I got to talk to a friend who does this and maybe he can help me. But yeah, so, with the variety of multimedia messages, you got to be comfortable with it and be willing to work through it. Hey, Ms. Kennedy, thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. So, looking at doing radio broadcasts, newspaper clippings, interactive maps, when you're dealing with like history lessons and things like that. There's definitely old, radio broadcasts that you have kids listening, FDR, I'm sure, and anything like that. Kids have to be able to identify themselves throughout some of this material. Hey, Ms. Hooley, thank you for finally stopping by. I'm just joking. I really do appreciate. Great friend of mine, administrator, a great person. So the other would be, thinking about having students write summaries and themes illustrated in the illustration form. It doesn't always have to be on-screen stuff. That's and I talk a lot about that. But the reality is we are bombarding students, ever since in the last probably 10, 15 years where technology has really been a push. We've been increasing screen time on our kids. And I think we have to dial it back a little bit. So anytime you can have kids create something that doesn't involve the computer technology, I say go for it. They do it, but then, how did they get it to you? Then you do use the technology piece, but don't have them have to go through the technology piece to create something. Regular, paper, pencil, hands, and glue and work just great. So think about that. But other sources, like I mentioned, TV interviews, there's always, scientists, leaders being interviewed, and they share great information, those kind of things. there's web series that I know a lot of you watch with your kids. So just be mindful of just being creative with the resource. Remember, like I said, try to create pathways, choices for kids to choose to be able to provide you with an understanding of the material you've presented. But again, use tools that you're comfortable with. Don't just try to do something completely out of the blue that you're like, oh, and now you don't know how to gather it or assess it or anything like that. Sorry, I sip my cup. My brother hates it when I sip my cup. Again, for those who don't know, I am drinking Colombian coffee. Hello, Mr. Navarro. Thank you for stopping by this morning. I'm sure you've been to Costa Rica fishing. I'm sure there's some good spots there. Mr. Navarro, he's a fisherman. And he's actually, you know what, he's an educator too. I mean, he teaches people how to fish. What kind of coffee? This is still Café Sello Rojo, Mr. Navarro. It's very smooth. I encourage it. It is actually, you can find it actually, I'm sure you're down in Florida, so in many of these supermarkets, you should be able, or a Colombian store. So it's very smooth. It comes from the mountains of Colombia, so you can't beat that. So anyway, so the resources, you know, the choices, all that, you got to be creative. You got to do that. Then you got to give kids opportunity to, and like I mentioned a little bit, to create and collaborate. That's the other thing about online now. Online has given us the opportunity to, hello, Mr. Diego. I was going to say Mr. Castillo. It's like I'm talking to myself, so I feel kind of idiotic, but thank you for stopping by. Let me know where you guys are also watching from. I'm over here in Southern Shores in North Carolina. It's around Kitty Hawk area, the Outer Banks. It'd be great to know where some of you are kind of watching from. But yeah, giving kids the opportunity to give them to individualize their instruction, but also opportunity to collaborate. It really can show their engagement. It really can boost, their creativity. And it creates rich products when kids have the authenticity to create their own. If you're so rigid on the way they have to present, it limits kids. Kids will just do the bare minimum. And what we want as educators is not the bare minimum. We want them to go above and beyond. Now, sometimes, we have to guide them because, if you give them an opportunity to draw something, some of the kids who are very good at drawing from your couch, that's nice. That's nice. So we're watching from your couch. I'm here, I guess, in my seat too, but I'm also watching, doing this from inside my house, in part because of they're doing outside construction. It rained last night, so it's pretty wet outside. Didn't want to get electrocuted. But yeah, giving them kids opportunity to just be creative, but be careful because again, some of them get, some are also very technical, technologically savvy, artistically inclined, and they'll focus so much on that aspect and not the actual content. So be mindful of that. No, I do not pay my wife to watch. I do not pay my wife to watch, Mr. Navarro. But and then also comes the ability to collaborate, and that's the great thing about this online thing. We have our PLCs, we have our faculty meetings on Google Meets, and also other people use Zoom. So it's a great way to be live and have discussions and things like that. So one of the ways, I guess, that you can have kids be creative. Good morning, Isabela. Ana, thank you for stopping by. That's my cousin. Déjeme saber de dónde está viendo el programa. So it's my cousin. Just want her to kind of write down where she's watching from. Appreciate it. PLC, very good. PLC is a professional learning community. So, and what that is just, as the professionals, we get together and really discuss. We can discuss data. We can discuss instruction, delivery, curriculum, anything like that. So, and we have simple meetings that we talk about just general management stuff. So those PLC meetings, those meetings like that, we are able to connect live, be able to have discussions and things like that. So give me 1 second. I think the guys are going to be coming in here to work on my backyard. I can hear them in the background. So don't want no strange face popping up over here. So giving kids an opportunity, the platform to collaborate, to have live discussions, it really, really helps out. Again, engagement. I know participation is always a struggle, but when you get them, do them. You got to be creative. You got to have interesting subject matter. You got to have relevant subject matter if you're going to have topics of discussion. Think about a lot of our teachers watch, the news in the morning. Great tool. Use that. Have open discussions, Socratic seminars, anything like that. But having kids, and for the kids that are very technologically savvy, digital storyboards. I mean, they'll go crazy with it. Just let them, have a variety of topics they can choose from. Give them a little bit of freedom. It's like a football field. You have this room, this space, and they got to get from one side to the other. But you got to set parameters around where they can go. And if they deviate too far, hey, no, you're getting away from the subject matter here. We need to bring them back, inbound. So think about that. And it really helps them connect the content to their lives because it's relevant. The traditional read an article, but then is the presentation. How do you want them to give you the information back, the summary, the recap? It could be a podcast. It could be a video like I'm doing here. Like maybe you ask them, hey, you're going to be presenting to your video to something and present your findings on the article you read. Those things are kind of neat. Post it on, some of you are having discussion boards, post them there, have kids react, respond to it and things like that. And then, there's definitely the other one I would say is, and I talked about discussions, debates. Pick a topic and just have an, online debate, but you got to set parameters. You got to set your rules. Everything that you do, you got to set your boundaries of how you want all this to go. So those are really cool ideas, to utilize when it comes to individuality and collaboration. The other part, and I've mentioned this before, and it's super important in this online world, is reflection. We have to give kids an opportunity to reflect. Actually, reflection, perfect. As you can see above me, I was got to get confused because this kind of shows backwards. I'm a big Dolphins fan, and this past week we did have probably what I would consider the best coach in history. Coach Don Shula passed away. He was a great Dolphin, really the only perfect season. So what can you say about Don Shula? 30 plus years, winningest coach, NFL history, 347 wins. We're going to miss him. He's a great guy in the community. And cool. Go Don Shula. I see here my Isabella she is in Medellin, Colombia, where it's very hot. So thank you for letting us know. Actually, today's actually quite cool here. It is 55 degrees. I'm actually wearing a long sleeve. It's a little chilly. So I'm glad you let me know. Florida, I know you're hot. You don't even have to tell me. That's why I moved up north. But going back to reflection, I think anybody, I don't care, even whatever profession you do, you should reflect on your own profession. And if you want to be the best that you can or want to be in your profession, you have to reflect. And you got to be honest and brutally honest with yourself. You got to find somebody who also will be honest with you, not tell you to the point where you want to just completely abandon ship, but reflection is super important if you want to get better. As I say, you can learn more from mistakes than actually from the things that you succeed. So reflecting is a very essential part of life, learning. And as teachers, we have to set those parameters. We need to set those parameters to help kids reflect. It's not something that comes natural for kids to reflect. So we have to kind of teach them. We have to guide them. I was an art teacher. Critiquing is something that doesn't come natural for folks, especially critiquing other people and how to begin doing that positively. So you got to coach them up. um, and um, and you got to coach them up little by little. But reflection is very important. Have them reflect, about um, of course, their content, but always sprinkle life in there too. I think we have to continue to make this online learning very personal. And I would say whenever you have any live sessions, don't always make it academic, make it some of it social. So how can you do some of these reflections? You can do it really privately with journals that only students share with you. You can do a discussion board where kids post. Um, Kids can do this. I mean, I know there's people who just kind of like to sit here and talk. I guess I'm talking about myself, and just reflect. Do a podcast. Do a video chat like this, and reflect about the learning, about what they learned. What ways what ways could have been presented better, and that helps you as an instructor. So reflection's key. Reflection's key. I think we have to do it a long way, and you have to think of it long term. You can't think of just doing reflection for one thing. It has to be a habit of doing it for every kind of major thing that you do for assessment. So it becomes natural. Again, it's not a natural thing for a lot of people to reflect. I think as we get older and a little wiser, we tend to do that a little bit more. Mr. Navarro, you're talking football here. I'll tell you, I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. I hope he doesn't go for the Vikings like Brett Favre did. I hope he stays with the Green Bay Packers. It was a little weird, that draft pick. But anyways, what are you going to do? And then throughout all this, and maybe even though I'm talking about this kind of last, but it might be even first, and that is helping kids and explaining the purpose, the why. And if you're an educator, you've been in education for a while, the why is very key. Just like in everything, if you're asking me to do something for you that doesn't come naturally, I want to say why. I mean, I have a teenager, 13-year-old. She is she is the prime example of a why. I'm like, hey, hon, can I borrow, I don't know. She's got little wooden hand. Can I borrow your wooden hand? Why? Like, it doesn't matter. No, why? Like, the teenagers and kids just want to know the reason why and a purpose why. So we have to be, Mr. Navarro, I am technically I live in Kitty Hawk. And I think what has happened is Kitty Hawk has kind of subdivided into a couple of other little townships. So you have like the town of Duck, the town of Southern Shores, which is where I live. Then you have Kitty Hawk, and so like that. So we used to be part of, when post office box has us labeled as Kitty Hawk. I guess we haven't been officially recognized maybe by the United States government as a township. So Southern Shores, I'll say many times Kitty Hawk, where the first flight took place. So that is where I am. $20, you can mail it to my house, Mr. Navarro. Gladly will take donations. Our show did get picked up for this week. I should find out by tomorrow if we'll get picked up for next week. I think I answered that question, what we're famous for, aside probably from me. I think the Wright Brothers Memorial, first flight. So explaining the purpose. Kids should always look forward to understanding how all the work impacts them, how all the work is gonna lead up to future learning, to the end goal. And that's, I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, but you have to sprinkle in there the why. I mean, at the beginning, you gotta just always, in every lesson, the why. This is why we're learning this. When you're teaching, you're doing your lesson halfway through, and see, that's why we're doing this. And at the end, now you see why we did this. So those kind of things. I don't have to ask for $20. I just take $20, Mr. Navarro. So, every student should have a sense of how they're growing. Reflection will do that. The why will do that. Your conversations will do that. I mean, have multiple conversations. I didn't freeze up. You froze up. I'm just kidding. I know sometimes this kind of freezes up. I'm still working on that, finding a good spot. It's kind of difficult sometimes here. I do have a family. I do have 2 dogs. So if I'm closest to my router, we're going to be hearing a lot of dogs. So this is the one place where I can kind of keep quiet. So hopefully I'm back on. And it really just makes connections along the way when you create the why, and that's very important. I said we do things. We do a lot of routine things. I'll be honest. Like those of you that have been in school or remember being in school and standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance, we just know as soon as they said Pledge of Allegiance, you knew to stand up and just I pledge allegiance and all that. But you don't think about the words that are being said or why you do it. And I think that's always important. I'm not saying I think about it every time, but not being from here and sometimes just thinking about the actual words that are in there, and knowing where I came from and where me and my brother and came from, there is a level of being thankful when you do the Pledge of Allegiance. But again, it's not every time because sometimes you just get caught up in a moment. If I don't have a base at just an activity or something like that, and they do the Pledge of Allegiance, I may not think about it, but hopefully I'm back live. So we're coming up to the 30 minutes. I appreciate you, but really what I wanted, one of the biggest things for you is that you can't just take the material that you've had in the classroom and just think you're going to do it online. You got to do some research. You got to figure a way. You're going to have to tweak it. You're going to have to turn it into a different format for that to work. So building rich, authentic activities with opportunities for reflection is going to help you tremendously in having a successful and a powerful online learning opportunity. So, just do the research. One of the things I think we should be doing as public education right now, or public educators, is really probably having conversations with universities, colleges that do online classes. Again, I've talked about this. They have taken the time to create these courses to be as effective as possible. And that, I guess, vetting takes time. And we're not talking a week like we had. It takes months to years to create a new course. So we're fools to think that we could have done it in less than a week and it could be 100% completely effective. So talk to your colleagues. What are they doing? What's being effective for them? At my school, we've kind of created we didn't create. So we found this little table, and it kind of asks little things about, what you're doing, what are you using it for, and some examples. Maybe how did it look like face to face, and now how is it looking like now online? Just to help us analyze and creating that for our staff members so they can go back and look and see it when they're looking to try a new format, that, okay, maybe I got to do this, I got to look at that, I got to think about that also. So anyways, it's been good today. Just talking about making things relevant, and just strategies. I mean, if good teaching is good teaching, and no matter where it's going to be, how it is, it transcends grade levels, content areas. But for some of us that are great faced, some of us, I'm going to be honest. I'm telling you, I was never a great teacher. I felt like I became a good to a very good teacher towards the latter part of my instructional career. And now looking back, I missed the boat on so many freaking things. And that's why I love the job that I do, because I can help, I can talk and things like this, and I can help coach teachers. So, but yeah, just don't think it's an easy transition, but start thinking about next year. Like I said, hopefully tomorrow's will interest some of you, because that's what we're going to be talking about. What is school going to look like next year? Because we're kidding ourselves if we think we can just end the school year and just relax for the next 10 weeks and then pick back up in August. It's not. It's going to be different. things are going to be different. I mean, I think what's going to be asked of teachers even during the summer is going to be different. So I do want to thank all of you that stopped by. Thank you to those of you kind of trying to annoy me. I appreciate it. It makes this even more fun. And I will see you tomorrow, where we'll discuss again what schools are going to look like. Special guest, Mr. Jonathan Geldmaker, and I will be discussing that. And thank you. And I will see you tomorrow with Educators Drinking Coffee.